Can Rand Paul win? Every once in a while, a new figure comes into our politics, articulating a new agenda and a new approach to American issues. One comes to mind is Pat Robertson, who first articulated the agenda politicizing the religious views of the Christian right. On the left, one that comes to mind is Howard Dean, who in 2004 pioneered the use of the internet to raise money and began the strong effort opposing corporate campaign contributions. Jerry Brown deserves a little footnote in there too. Now the problem is none of those three won. And Rand Paul is coming forth with a really new political agenda, a combination of non-interventionism in foreign policy on the one hand, opposition to the religious right and its agenda, a libertarian approach to those issues on the other, and the traditional Republican emphasis on economic freedom of opportunity and lack of government regulation. Now, all three have a consistency in that they all focus on smaller government and less government, whether it's in the defense sphere, the moral sphere, or the economic sphere. But in terms of the Republican nomination of 2016, it slices apart horizontally the layer cake that is the Republican Party. The bottom layer is the economic conservatives. They're in sync with Rand Paul. The next layer is the evangelicals. They oppose him. And the top layer is the national security types, and they oppose him as well. And by splintering the coalition that Ronald Reagan put together, Paul really is facing a very difficult course, both to winning the general election and to winning the primary. But his candidacy should not be neglected. I personally believe that Paul will not win in 2016, but he might win in 2020 or 2024. Once he articulates that agenda and that synthesis of viewpoints, I think he's going to find some real resonance from many sectors of the Republican Party that want to embrace the economic conservatism, but not at the price of the social conservatism. It's kind of like people that want to go into a restaurant and instead of having to order the dinner menu, want to order a la carte based on what they like. They may want a first course of pro-choice, but they may want a main course of low taxes, and they may want a dessert of opposing labor unions. Well, you can't get that. You either order the Democratic agenda or the Republican agenda for dinner. And Rand Paul is in a very courageous and novel way defying that. Probably his biggest problem is national security issues. During a period in which there are not serious national security concerns, such as probably existed in 2008 when his father tried to run for president, or in 2010 when he was elected to the Senate from Kentucky, those issues did not loom large. Foreign policy never matters in American politics until a crisis thrusts it to the top of the agenda, and then it dominates everything. And ISIS shows signs of perhaps being that crisis. The Iranian nuclear program and North Korea's actions are also possibilities on that score. And with each ISIS beheading and each attack on a newspaper or magazine in Paris, the momentum of the national security issues builds. And Paul is very defensive on that. A lot of his stuff smacks of a Chamberlain-esque appeasement. And that could undermine him in his efforts to get the nomination. The problem he faces is that most of the libertarians are either in the center, in which case they'd probably be more inclined to support Bush or Romney because they're sort of mainstream centrist Republicans, or they're on the extreme right, or the right wing, in which case they're more likely to support Ted Cruz or Rick Santorum or Mike Huckabee, who are more in line with their agendas. So the problem is that everybody who might support Paul might only have him as a second choice, and we might never get down to that second choice level. The other problem, of course, is that Paul, uniquely among the candidates, has to give up his Senate seat in order to run. Rubio does too, but Paul does certainly. And the Kentucky legislature, half Democrat, is not about to lift that requirement. And Paul will have to be very convinced that he can win in order to make that run. On the other hand, he might, because his movement is a real movement based on ideology and issues with strong adherents, and would have a very good chance of lasting even were he not in power. as senator. Thanks for watching.